Have you ever wondered how paper is made? This seemingly simple sheet that we scribble on, fold into origami, or use to wrap gifts is a marvel that often goes unnoticed. It's an everyday item, found in every corner of the globe, from the busiest metropolis to the quietest hamlet. But how often do we stop to consider the journey it has taken before it lands in our hands? Paper, in its myriad forms, is a silent witness to our lives. It holds our thoughts, carries our messages, and captures our imagination. Yet the process of its creation remains largely a mystery to most of us. From the towering trees in the forest to the delicate thin sheet you hold in your hand, the transformation is nothing short of magical. Well, today, you're in for a treat as we delve into the fascinating process of paper making. Believe it or not, the journey of paper making starts in a forest. Our story begins with trees, the primary source of paper. Picture a forest, a flourishing ecosystem full of towering, leafy giants. Among these giants, some are destined to become the pages of your favorite book, the canvas of an artist, or the notebook of a diligent student. These chosen trees are logged, a process that involves cutting down and removing selected trees from the forest. This is done with great care and precision, as sustainable forestry practices are essential in conserving our planet's resources. Once the logging is done, the trees are transported to a paper mill. This can be through various means, such as trucks, trains, or even barges if the mill is near a water body. These logs are then stored until they're ready for the next stage of the process. The transformation from tree to pulp begins with debarking. The logs are stripped of their bark because, while the bark is essential for a living tree, it doesn't contribute to the paper-making process. After the bark is removed, the logs are chipped into small pieces. These chips are not unlike what you might use for mulching your garden, only these are destined for a different purpose. These wood chips are then cooked, but this isn't your ordinary cooking. The chips are treated in a digester, a large pressure cooker that uses heat and chemicals to break down the wood into its basic components. This process separates the cellulose fibers, the primary ingredient for paper, from other components like lignin, a natural glue that holds the wood fibers together in a tree. When the cooking is done, the result is a mushy, fibrous substance known as pulp. The pulp may be bleached to remove any remaining color, resulting in a white pulp that is ready to be transformed into paper. With the pulp ready, we're now one step closer to our final product. Now that we have our pulp, it's time for a magical transformation. The process begins with the pulp undergoing a bleaching process. This step is vital to ensure we get that crisp, white paper we're all familiar with. The pulp is treated with chemicals that work to remove any remaining lignin. Lignin, you see, is a substance that naturally occurs in wood and lends it that brown color. But in papermaking, it's not something we want hanging around. Once the pulp is devoid of lignin, it's ready for the next stage. Here, it's mixed with a generous amount of water, creating a concoction we call a slurry. This slurry is a soupy mix, with the consistency of a thick milkshake. This slurry is the secret to the strength of paper, as the water allows the individual fibers in the pulp to spread out and intertwine. Now, we've got our slurry, and it's time to give it some shape. The slurry is spread onto a wire screen. This screen acts as a sieve, allowing the water to drain away while the fibers start to bond together. As the water drains, a mat of interweaving fibers begins to form. These fibers, once tightly packed and dried, will form the paper. It's fascinating to think that this process, which seems so simple, is the foundation of something we use every day without a second thought. The transformation from a soupy slurry to a mat of interweaving fibers is an intricate dance of chemistry and physics. As the water continues to drain and the mat dries, we start to see something that looks a lot like paper. It's not quite there yet, it still needs a bit of work, but we're definitely on the right track. And just like that, our pulp is starting to look a lot like paper. Our paper is almost ready, but it's missing a few finishing touches. At this stage, our paper, or rather, the mat of pulp fibers, is still very damp. To rectify this, we press the mat, squeezing out as much water as possible. It's a bit like wringing out a wet towel, except on a much larger and more precise scale. The pressing process not only removes excess water, but also helps to bond the fibers together, creating a more solid sheet. Once the mat is as dry as we can get it through pressing, it's time to bring out the big guns: heat. We pass the mat through a series of heated rollers or dryers. This process is similar to how a clothes dryer works, where warm air effectively evaporates the remaining moisture. It's a delicate balance, though. Too much heat can weaken the paper, while too little leaves it damp and prone to tearing. Now our paper is dry and stable, but it's not quite finished. The surface is still rough and unrefined. This is where the polish comes in. By running the paper through a series of rollers, we can smooth out any rough edges and give it a sleek, polished finish. The process is akin to sanding a piece of wood, smoothing out the surface and removing any imperfections. But wait, there's more. Depending on the type of paper we're making, we might also apply a coating. This coating can serve a variety of purposes, from making the paper more resistant to water and fading, to providing a glossy finish for high-quality prints. The coating process is much like painting a wall, where a thin, even layer of material is applied to the surface of the paper. So, there you have it. We've pressed, heated, polished, and possibly even coated our paper. It's been a journey, but one that's well worth it. The result is a sheet of paper that's not only functional, but also beautiful to behold. And voila! Our paper is ready to be used and appreciated by all. So there you have it, the intriguing journey of paper from tree to finished product. It all starts in the forest, with the felling of trees. These trees are then transported to the mill, where they are reduced to chips and subjected to a pulping process to separate the fibers. This pulp, a mushy substance, is then bleached to remove any impurities, resulting in a clean, white pulp ready for the next stage. The pulp is then spread onto a wire mesh, where water drains away, leaving behind a mat of intertwined fibers. This mat, still damp, is then pressed and heated to form the paper. The final steps involve cutting, sorting, and packaging the paper, ready for its journey to stationery stores around the world. Next time you hold a piece of paper, remember the incredible process it went through to reach your hands.